All right, we're going to start the Unit 9, Section 2 notes. And in this section, we're going to be talking about how to clear inequalities and equations with both fractions and decimals. So we're going to start by talking about how to solve equations with clearing fractions. And the first thing we're going to want to do is determine our least common denominator, because if you look now, we have both a denominator of 12 and 3, and so we need to find a denominator that's common between both of those. We know that our LCD, least common denominator, in this example is going to equal 12. Now, if you're not sure where I got 12 from, please stop the video and get some help on that before moving forward. So I'm going to multiply each fraction in the problem by my least common denominator, or 12 over 1. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So 12 over 1 times 1/12 minus 12 over 1 times 2/3 x equals 12 over 1 multiplied by 1/3. Now, before I do anything else, I'm going to simplify. So 12 multiplied by 1/12 is simply 1. And then I'm going to subtract. 3 goes into 3 one time, into 12 4 times. And so this would be 8x. And then when I look to my equal sign, I can divide 12 and 3 both by 3. So that simplifies into 4. I now have a two-step equation. So I'm going to go ahead and solve for x by subtracting 1 from both sides. I have negative 8x equals 3. To solve for x, I'm going to divide by negative 8. Don't forget that negative sign. And so x simply is negative 3 over 8. And I'm going to leave my answer as a fraction. Feel free to do that unless you are told otherwise. So looking at number 2, I have a denominator of 3, 9, and 36. So I know then that my LCD, least common denominator, is in fact 36. So I'm going to multiply each fraction in my problem by 36 over 1, or just 36. So 36 over 1 multiplied by 2/3 equals 36 over 1 times 7/9 x plus 36 over 1 multiplied by 11/36. Now I'm going to simplify. I can divide 36 and 3 both by 3, which simplifies into 1 and 12. So then on this side of the equal sign, I have 24 equals, I'm going to divide 36 and 9 both by 9, which simplifies into 28x. And then I'm going to simplify this one, and those 36's are going to cancel, so I just have plus 11 there. Now I'm back to a normal two-step equation that you've seen many times before. So I'm going to subtract 11 from both sides. That leaves me with 13 equals 28x. Divide both sides by 28. So my answer is x equals 13/28. That's in simplest form, and therefore I am finished. All right, so we're now going to talk about how to solve equations by clearing decimals. And what we want to look for here is a power of 10 that will clear our decimals. So we're either going to multiply everything in our equation by 10, 100, 1000, any power of 10, and we look to our decimal places to determine that. So in our first example, there's only one place to the right of the decimal here. So I'm going to multiply everything in my equation by 10. So 10 times 2.3x plus 10 times 9.2 equals 10 times 23. If I were to have two places to the right of the decimal, I would multiply by 100, but I just have one here, so I'm multiplying by 10. This simplifies into 23x plus 92 equals 230. Again, we're back to that simple two-step equation. Subtract 92 from both sides. I'm left with 23x equals 138. When I divide both sides by 23, my answer is x equals 6. All right. As I mentioned before, we're going to look to our decimal places to determine which power of 10 we're going to multiply by. And in this example with 10.56, we have two places to the right of the decimal. So we're going to multiply everything by 100. Let's go ahead and do that. So 100 times 26.4 equals 100 times 6.6x plus 100 times 10.56. All right, I'm going to go ahead and simplify. So I'm going to have 2,640 equals 660x minus 1,056. Again, we're back to that two-step equation you've seen many times before. I'm going to add 1056 to both sides. When I do that, I'm left with 1,584 equals 660x. Divide both sides by 660, and x equals 2.4, or 2 4/10. All right, I'm going to go ahead and show you number 2. We're doing the same thing here. We're going to clear these fractions and solve this inequality. So we're doing the same thing as we did at the top, but instead of an equal sign now, we have an inequality. So I'm still going to look for that least common denominator between 3 and 9, and we know that simply to be 9. So therefore, I'm going to multiply every fraction by 9. So 9 over 1 times negative 5/9 minus 9 over 1 times 1 over 9. And all of that is less than 1/3 times 9 over 1. Now I'm going to see if there's anything that I can cancel. Here my 9's cancel, so I'm left with negative 5x. Here my 9's cancel, so that's minus 1. Is less than, that simplifies into a 1, into a 3, less than 3. I'm going to add 1 to both sides. I'm left with negative 5x equals 4. Now I'm going to solve, instead of an equal sign, that should be a less than sign. I'm going to finish solving this inequality by dividing both sides by negative 5. Remember that when you multiply or divide by a negative number, your sign flips. So our sign now faces that way. X is greater than negative 4/5. All right. I'd like you to go back and try number 1 using number 2 as your example. All right, we're going to do an area problem, and I apologize that the rectangle is not here, so go ahead and draw a rectangle with a length of 5/8 x plus 5, and the width of that rectangle is 4. Now, if you remember, the area formula for a rectangle is simply area equals length times width. So we're going to have area equals 4 times 5/8 x plus 5. And remember, our commutative property also tells us that area equals width times length. All right, and because we want our area to be at least 40 square inches. So all of this has to be greater than or equal to 40. All right, I'm going to go ahead and use my distributive property here. 4 is equal to 4 over 1. So 4 times 5/8 x would be 20/8 x plus 4 times 5 is 20. What I could have done as well, which I would encourage you to do, would be to simplify before you multiply. So that instead of 20 over 8 would simply be 5 over 2 plus 20 is greater than or equal to 40. I'm going to subtract 20 from both sides, just like I would solving an inequality. I have 5/2 x greater than or equal to 20. I'm going to multiply by my multiplicative inverse here. So multiply each side by 2/5. When I do that, I have x is greater than or equal to 8. So the possible values for x, it needs to be at least 8, but it can also be larger. All right, there's a few review problems for you to do to conclude this section. Again, make sure you do all of the review problems and problems I've left for you to do before attempting that check-in. And if you have any questions at all, please be sure and ask your teacher.